Dr. Michael Giuffre, our recently appointed Alberta Medical Association President. Dr. Giuffre.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here, kind of. When I was driving here, my iPhone was going off and beeping away, and I was trying to be safe and not look, but I'd noticed that my 974th email had arrived since Friday. And I thought, wow, you know, to me, it's a big number, but to me, it represented really what's kept me going over the last while, because it's been some long hours and hard effort to kind of get through this and make sure that we're well represented. And your AMA team has been incredible, and I thank them before I really start. So I'm really pleased to see a big turnout, and I'm glad there's representation across the board, and I thank you very much. It's amazing that it takes a fairly big event to bring the docs together. Seldom do you kind of ever get us to show up at one meeting more than 5 or 10 at a time, unless we're kind of getting an award or doing something. So it's great to see you all here, and thank you again. What my agenda is, I'd like to speak for about 15 minutes, maybe 20, and I'd like to follow a framework, and hopefully you can be patient with me. My framework is the following. I'd like to talk about where we are today. How did we get here? What are the challenges? And how do we move forward? I'm going to start with where we are today. I believe most of you will have read my President's letter from last Friday and then Tuesday of this week, giving the facts about the Minister's decision to impose a settlement on physicians, the misleading numbers he has presented to the public, and our analysis of those numbers. And now we have real numbers. I know that most physicians have read these letters because, as I said, I've been inundated with emails and phone calls. The response is overwhelming, and I'm very heartened by the support that has been offered, and I want to thank everyone here and all those that have sent the emails and made the phone calls. It's going to take me a little while to reply to each of those emails, but I can tell you that I've read them all, and I do intend to have a response to each one. Each message is important. Each one has great ideas. And I can tell you, these are not these 2- and 3-line little sweet emails. These are brilliantly written, well thought out, page and a half of true gut reaction to what's happened. And it made me, it invigorated me. It made me proud to be a doc. I'm so pleased to represent you. So thanks in advance for being patient with my answers on those emails. So yesterday I wrote to the Minister and I released my letter to the media. I have challenged Mr. Horn to come back to the negotiating table, to rescind the imposed settlement and negotiate a suitable agreement by December 31st. We also need the Minister to agree that if we cannot complete an agreement by December 31st, then we will go to a mutually agreed upon dispute resolution process. We need to work through these things. The stakes are too high for anything else. Let's take a look at how we got here. Bear with me for a little bit of history. Some of you are very familiar with this and some are not. I will ask you to keep 2 key words in mind as I go through a little bit of history. The first word, trust, and the second word, confidence. Our 8-year master agreement ended March 31st, 2011, and the last fee increase was April 2010. We had been in negotiations for nearly 20 months now, and this is simply too long. You will probably recall that there have been a number of phases. Let me go back. An agreement in principle was first reached in March 2011 that expired June 30th of that year. The AMA board voted not to extend that AIP because there were unacceptable provisions in decision-making in the system, resolving disputes, and lack of common understanding on how to improve access, quality, and productivity. Perhaps these issues still resonate. 2011 negotiations then moved forward, and we were increasingly concerned about the length of discussions. We repeatedly requested that matters be moved to arbitration, but government was unwilling to do so. We filed an application for an arbitrator in the courts, and the courts turned us down. We filed an appeal. We kept negotiation going, basically from scratch. On February 27, 2012, the minister decided to change the rules of the game on his own terms, and he announced that he was imposing a 2% fee increase and a $12 per patient increase for primary care networks to cover inflationary costs. The profession pushed back in a resounding fashion. The fee changes were not implemented, and negotiations began again. In March 2012, the AMA and the minister signed yet another agreement in principle. That AIP was intended to be a bridge to a further, longer-term agreement. The AIP was not a comprehensive agreement, but a list of elements that the parties agreed to, that they were reasonable, and they were good as a foundation. You will recall that this last AIP provided fee increases of 2.5% for 2011-12, 2.5% for 2012-13, and a cost of living increase for 2013-14 if no replacement agreement was completed by then. The AIP also contained many important provisions, including continuation of key programs, continuation of programs beyond agreements, recognition of the AMA, ability to arbitrate on some matters, and provisions for moving forward on primary care. The 2012 Spring AMA Representative Forum approved the broad elements and directed the negotiation teams to expedite drafting of an actual agreement. We were very close to concluding this one. In fact, a special meeting of RF was called 2 weeks later to review the draft agreement. Then came the provincial election, and negotiations stopped because the minister said he could not sign off on any arrangements during that time. When the election was over, however, a new ballgame. The minister now asked for new provisions, including removing primary care, removing PCNs, removing the physician office systems program from the agreement, and above all, government wants a change from decision-making by consensus to unilateral ministerial authority. These changes were unacceptable to the AMA and eventually led to the expiry of the AIP on June 30th with no agreement in hand. The board was simply unwilling to accept these provisions that would reduce the role of the AMA and the collective voice of physicians to that of a financial negotiator and nothing more. Negotiations began again and continued in fits and starts over the summer. In her valedictory address, our past president, Dr. Linda Slocum, expressed her frustration over the negotiation process and lack of an agreement. My direct involvement in these negotiations began when I became president. My first meeting with Minister Horn in October was cordial and general. We each described what would be required to move forward. We agreed to meet again. And at the second meeting, October 25th, Mr. Horn presented government's new negotiation position, or offer, or preconditions to the AMA. We did not receive any details at that meeting, but the next day we received a one-page document with 7 bullet points, we were told. And the minister told the media in an interview at the time of the meeting that this was the best offer to the AMA. Over the next few weeks, emails and phone calls between the parties were fast and furious. On November 15th, the minister and I met for the last time. The meeting was intended to be a review of a jointly prepared analysis of the impact of government's offer to physicians, but in fact, merely a reiteration that government was not willing to move from its best offer, a set of preconditions. The next morning, Friday, November 16th, I received a letter from the minister, and about 20 minutes notice of his public announcement that he was imposing a settlement. This imposition for a 5-year period offered lower fee increases, termination of critical programs with no guarantees for the security of the funds they provided to physicians, and a downward adjustment of a cherry-picked list of fees that the minister had arbitrarily selected. As you know from our analysis, what the minister describes as a $436 million boon for physicians is not what it seems. He hasn't accounted for planned takeaways. He is also not saying that money he is removing from programs does not have to go back to physicians and could instead be used for FCCs or other things. And there are even more serious issues. Now let's look at these issues and why we must respond so deliberately and forcefully. I want to walk you through 5 major points. The first one, the minister's decision to use an imposition and ministerial authority to conclude negotiations is a big issue, and one that should worry anyone who cares about the healthcare system. It deals with the basic rights of physicians, which are abused in an outrageous fashion. Can you think of any other group who is being told, here's what you are going to be paid for the next 5 years, and that's it, and there is nothing you can do about it? 5 years is a huge increment of professional lifespan. This is unprecedented. And look what's happening within that 5 years. The imposition means that the minister is taking money away from you that you have received from the business cost program and the retention benefit. Not only won't he promise to give you that money back, and it's your money, but he's using those funds as a lever against you. I may give you some of that money back, he says, if you cooperate with what I want to do. And what's he want to do? Through things like family care clinics or arbitrary fee schedule changes will affect how you deliver care, how all of us deliver care, and will come between physicians and the patients we service. Everyone should be concerned about this. In doing what he has done, the minister has ignored provisions of the Canada Health Act and requests from the AMA to name an arbitrator, not to mention fighting us in court on that front. He is moving more and more of what we have had from areas of progress for decision-making to the world of ministerial authority. If you don't like that, you can expect more in the future if we do not stand together. Let's look at his plans to adjust that set of fees. The AMA has said many times that we are not afraid to look at reviewing fee relativity, but we want a process and evidence-based decisions, and we want appropriate input from the physicians that are affected. The minister cannot just arbitrarily pick the fees he thinks that are no longer appropriate. Issue number 2. The minister is challenging the unity of the profession. This imposition is all about splitting us apart. The minister will deny this, but I have heard from hundreds and hundreds of you in the past few days. To most of us, the intent of the imposition is as plain as the nose on the minister's face. He is trying to drive wedges between us, and this will not stop, and it may get more intense. We must stand together. We must think of our collective needs as a profession. Don't let government divide you. Don't let him use trade-offs and backing off here and there, and I will say more about that in a minute. My point is here, we are all in this together. Unity speaks volumes. Point number 3. When I talk about backing off, I mean that I wouldn't be surprised if the minister backs off on parts of the imposition. But what does that really mean? The same minister tried to impose an arrangement before the election and eventually retreated. He may try to offer concessions to one group, hoping the bigger picture may be lost. He may offer to change small items, but it would be a disaster to our profession if we let him do that without also addressing all the other fires that he has set. We must not be distracted by short-term particulars. When the major fundamentals are still in question, they must be addressed. That's what the minister will ask you to do. We can't kid ourselves. It's happened before, and it will happen again. Point number 4. When we are talking about fundamentals, let's look at what's happening in the system. Over the last year, we have seen a government pushing a lot of change. They are trying to reshape primary care. They want to change the way patients move through the system, including secondary and tertiary care. And they are making plans and decisions without us. They have bureaucrats who have never been involved in the front lines developing 100-page documents about how family care will be delivered. They are keeping these documents secret and sharing them with a hand-picked few. There is no emphasis on relationships. There is no trust. There is no respect. And I, for one, simply can't see how anyone can hope to make the system better or even maintain what we have without these things. This is a problem for all of us, and that includes the minister. Point 5. I have a question for Mr. Horn, and in fairness, I don't really expect him to have an answer today. Does he really think he can run this healthcare system without the confidence of physicians? I think we would all like to hear his answer. If he says no, I don't need the confidence of physicians, then I profoundly disagree. A system that does not have a well-engaged medical profession will not succeed. If the minister says that yes, he does want and need the confidence of physicians, then I have news for him. He's losing it. There is mounting evidence of that in the emails, the phone calls, the media coverage, and hallway conversation. This cannot go on. So, where does this leave us, and where do we go from here? In the short term, there is one person who can deal with all of these things that I've identified, and that's the minister. The person who imposed a settlement on physicians is the only one who can take it back. That's why I wrote to him yesterday and said, we need to get back to the table. We need to conclude negotiations quickly, or we need to find a dispute resolution process to close the gaps. The minister has said he will come back to the table, but he won't confirm that he will allow dispute resolution, and he won't change the money. Well, it's easy to talk when he thinks he has what he wants, but he basically is sticking to what he told me 3 weeks ago. That is not progress. Does the AMA think an arbitrated settlement is the best solution for us? No. A negotiated agreement is always better because arbitration has risks to both sides. That's why, although everyone else has it, it is rarely used. But arbitration is a basic right that physicians are being denied. And it's a way to end something that has been going on and will go on and on. Refusing to allow dispute resolution is nonsense. The minister says there are no provisions for arbitration. That is nonsense. Private parties use mechanisms like this all the time to resolve disputes. Other professions and governments and individuals do as well. The Canada Health Act says it must be available to physicians. There is no reason on earth why the minister can't just decide to make it so. These are matters of fairness, of basic rights. If the minister thinks his imposition will end his problems with the profession, I disagree. And what is the AMA going to do in the weeks ahead, particularly if the minister says no? Well, we have an appeal before the courts seeking to have an arbitrator appointed, and we consider the rights aspect of this situation. We are exploring other options. We also want to talk to the public because we think Albertans will care about the rights of physicians, and that this imposition and all that it makes possible can come between them and their physicians. We have been hearing from so many angry members, and there has been mention of job action. Unpleasant as that term may be, the media have been pressing me to give a hard answer on that front, and I'm just not willing to rule anything out right now. I don't think doing so is in the best interest of the membership. We all hope that Mr. Horn will give a positive response, but if he does not, I can't preclude any options. And let me ask you this. Our basic rights are being challenged. Is there any more important reason or better time to act? I've talked about how important unity will be. We are in touch with all the sections of the AMA in secondary, tertiary, and primary care. We are working together. We're standing together. On the FCC front, we have been supporting the primary care network leaders to advise government that physicians have not had enough involvement, and telling the minister he needs to slow down and to do things right. Physicians need to be involved. There will be much more to come, and I will keep you all informed. But I am keeping an eye on the time, so I think it's time to wrap up. Right now, I can feel the energy in this room. I know you are angry and frustrated. I know we all want to know the one thing we can do to bring this all to an end. I have to tell you, though, there will be no quick fix. Again, there may be temptations to take piecemeal concessions. The minister may back down on a number of things in this imposition. If he does, we mustn't back down ourselves. We must keep pushing. There will be no satisfaction, no peace, no trust in long term unless we deal with the issues I've described. Trust has been sorely damaged. The minister is very good about talking nicely to and about physicians. If we let them, government will just keep talking. Eventually, they have to act. They must earn trust through positive actions that are physician inclusive, not just more nice talk. The first thing the minister can do is agree to the requests I made yesterday and get back to the table with a visible end in sight. We can reach an agreement or arbitrate a conclusion, but then it will still take years to rebuild trust and to undo the damage that has been done. The minister needs to start the process now. Thank you.